Hello and welcome. You have found the Success Series webinar, and we are so glad you did. We're going to be talking today about Louisiana Lagniappe, a lot of the things that you need to know as an employee of the state of Louisiana. And in order to be able to do this, oh man, we've got some of the best guests you'll ever imagine today. So we're going to have a really good time with this. It's the Success Series webinar brought to you by State Civil Service. And our goal for today is basically to equip you with the latest updates and information that you need to know as a state employee, things that will make you in the know. And we kind of want to be that way. I'm your host today. I'm Christy Atwood. I'm just keeping things moving because we've got an incredible crew with us today. We have Brandy Malatesta. We have Christopher Deere. We have Byron Decato. And we have the invisible Toby Como. I don't know, that was the invisible man today. But they are going to be giving us some ideas about some of the things that are going on right now and some of the things that have happened over the past year and let you know some more about what's happening. You know what? I would like y'all to tell people your titles, what you do, something like that. So how about that? Would y'all mind?
Certainly. Byron Decato, I'm the director here at State Civil Service.
Yay.
Chris Deere, I serve as Deputy Director.
And Brandy Malatesta, I'm the Chief Operating Officer, a little bit over the PODS model that we'll talk about a little bit later today.
Oh, and that's exciting stuff. I'm looking forward to talking about that. Okay, great. So how about, let's see here. I'm playing with buttons at the same time, so this is always really exciting to see. Okay, let's get started with this one here, the state legislature. We want to know what are some of the things that happened in the state legislature that we need to know about, some things that could affect us or affect people that we know and love. So, Byron, could you get us started on this one?
Yeah, not much to talk about when it comes to the 2019 regular session. Of course, it ended in June of this year. This year, it was very quiet for us relative to a civil service standpoint. Much of the session was surrounding the state budget. That's something that our staff monitored here very closely because we wanted to make sure that the funding was there for our market adjustments for our classified employees. So throughout that process, we would watch the sessions and the committee meetings, particularly the Appropriations Committee and Senate Finance. So we were able to get a feel from what the state agencies' budgets were going to look like. Should we be prepared in the event that they would have some funding cuts that may affect their ability to pay those market adjustments? Thankfully, that did not come to fruition. Everyone received if you were a classified employee on July 15th of this year, you should have received your market adjustment, depending upon where you are at in your pay range.
Boy, there was a lot of work getting to that point, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was a lot of work, and my team put a lot of work into that to redesign our compensation philosophy. So to have a second year where those market adjustments were paid, when we know for so long many state employees pay was frozen for budgetary reasons, and that affects our ability to retain people and recruit people.
Right.
So, we were very fortunate to see that the budget allowed for that this year. So awesome. Other than that, there were two particular instruments that, just kind of want to mention related to, employment and civil service. The first one is House Concurrent Resolution 61 by Representative Mary Dubuisson. This one was a urgent request to interview qualified veterans who apply to fill for a vacancy in state government. We received a couple of questions from our HR community and some hiring managers, but what exactly did that mean? It is not anything that is mandatory that if a veteran applies to a particular vacancy that you have to interview them. But it was simply an urgent request. And, I would like to take this opportunity to say, we do believe that veterans have valuable skills that they can bring to the workforce. So at Civil Service, we are looking at putting together a toolkit or best practices kit for our HR community in how to reach veterans and how to help them translate their military experience into the skills that are needed for jobs here. I sent you a quote from...
Oh my gosh, yes, I love this quote. This quote is wonderful.
Yeah, and this quote pretty much sums it up. I won't read it, but it's on the screen for you. This was from President George W. Bush gave a speech, and he talked about the skills that veterans had and what they can bring to the workforce. Basically, I think there was a survey done by the Society of Human Resource Management, the National Association for HR, and it conducted a survey of veterans, and it said that 90% of veterans indicated that they had difficulties and obstacles in obtaining employment. And I think that is due to the fact that there's a translation that gets lost between the
Yes.
skills of what they have in the military service and what they can bring to the job. And this quote sums it up perfectly.
It does.
If you put a sniper on your job application, the hiring managers, we don't need a sniper.
No, not this week. Maybe next week.
Not this week, but
Right,
would he put on that application or during that interview that he can deal with pressure, that he's a team player, and that he has he's loyal to a cause greater than himself, that he can follow instruction. So what we hope to do is to encourage the hiring of veterans and not to just pass over them, because I think sometimes it comes with a stereotype. A lot of employers or hiring managers think that they're going to have to put some time in with veterans because there's a stigma of some veterans have a post-traumatic stress syndrome. Well, not all veterans were, in an active situation where they have that experience, or they're worried about future deployments, So, but we do believe that that's a resource that we need to tap, especially when there is a great demand to recruit individuals, and we're starting to struggle with that. That we just want to let people know that this is a group that is out there, that they have good work ethic, teamwork, and they can adapt to challenging situations.
Obviously.
So, yes.
And it's just not enough for us to say thank you for your service.
Right.
We need to go a step further.
Right. So, we hope to put together some best practices and share that with our HR community. Again, I know this is general for all classified employees and, unclassified as well that we're talking to our audience today. But, we want to help those agencies and get some information out to them and just let them know that, this is a House Concurrent Resolution. There is no response. Usually some of them come with a final report to send back to the legislature. There's no report or anything that has to be sent back to the legislature. So we're going to do our best, and we would probably, indicate to the committee and to the representative that, we are trying to help out, push this
Right.
issue.
So this is mainly to draw attention to it
Yes.
and make us realize that this is an issue that we need to think about.
Right.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah, and then there was another House Concurrent Resolution 93 by Representative Stephanie Hilferty. And this one deals with family and paternal leave. You may have read about this or heard about this. There's a strong push for leave, for family leave, especially in the private industry, and we're starting to see that trickle into state government. The concurrent resolution, basically what it asked was that the legislative auditor do a study of the three branches of government on their leave, what type of availability is available for family leave and parental leave. Okay. So, I'd had an initial meeting with their office, talked about our leave program here at State Civil Service, and they're going to be doing the same thing with the judicial branch and the legislative branch. And they have a report that they have to present to the legislature by January of 2020. So, I believe the intent of this is to bring up the issue and the importance of the issue of work-life balance and flexibility,
right.
Having parents be able to bond with their newborns and so forth, or even just to take care of someone that they need to take care of. We are very fortunate here as a classified employee, and unclassified employees as well. They mirror our leave system, but we have a very generous leave system here. Yeah. So, our employees do earn sick leave and annual leave, and we're required by the federal government to follow the Family Medical Leave Act. So, there are those job protections that those individuals receive. I do believe that the push that we're seeing in the private industry, though, goes beyond FMLA, for individuals who may not qualify for FMLA, may qualify for FMLA, but they might not have enough leave. So in other words, if you have annual or sick leave on FMLA, you may be able to be out with your job protected and get paid. Okay. Some individuals may not have leave, so they would be protected, but they would not get paid.
Okay, but so they still are protected in their job.
They're still protected under the Family Medical Leave Act. But I think the push that we're seeing is you want to have some type of paid leave. The difficulty with that is someone has to pay for that, and some of the bills that we've seen, it's either through like an employer tax situation, or some of the federal bills that we've seen taking, I think there were some proposals that said you could have some of your early childhood credit that you have, some individuals have. You could get some upfront money or something. So there's all kind of ideas out there, but the
Okay.
issue with it is, who's going to pay for that? So, but we know it's a key issue and we're looking at it. So I'm anxious to see what this report puts out. But again, I do believe that we have a very good leave system here that promotes that flexibility for employees.
Yeah, excellent. Well, great to know about both of those. And oh, by the way, while we were here, Toby, hi Toby.
Hey.
So we told him the wrong time just so we'd be able to make fun of him. Okay. So, Toby Como, what is your position?
I'm the Chief Administrative Officer.
All right,
Yes,
great.
yes.
Great. Well, we're glad you could join us.
Absolutely, thank
even
you.
though we gave you the wrong time. Okay. All right. So really interesting things there. I know that it wasn't as big and heavy a year in the legislature for y'all.
No,
so
it wasn't.
That's kind of a
quite
nice change.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was
okay.
nice.
So, all right. Well, now there's also been a whole lot going on in civil service itself and the way that it serves the people, the agencies, and everything. I'd like to know a little bit more about what's going on here.
Certainly, and that may be something that the general population of classified employees may not know about. This is something that we educated our HR community on very heavily, but we have restructured here at State Civil Service. First and foremost, our main responsibility is regulating that classified workforce, ensuring that the Constitution is carried out, due process and so forth. But my predecessors over the previous years have made many reforms with civil service, giving more authority to hiring managers and to agencies to attract the individuals that they need to attract and to retain them. And it was pushing those reforms forward to have a civil service essentially become like a service center. So we were in a position through other initiatives in the department where we were becoming more supportive of our HR community. But I always felt personally, since I became the director, it was a goal of mine. I wanted to do something differently. I felt internally here at Civil Service that I could provide something for our employees to have more of a meaningful impact by giving them more responsibilities. And then we could have impact with our state agencies as well. So we had a workforce summit this past year, and I think you were there with us. We had great feedback, but the feedback that we had solidified my desire. I wanted to raise the bar. I wanted to be a true strategic partner and have our staff working very closely with state agencies on human resource issues, because we do run a very good human resource program in Louisiana, and that is attributed to our staff here, the leadership that we've had in the past, that we have currently, and even our HR community that we have out there. So I went to Brandy, and I'm going to let Brandy talk a little bit. And I pitched my idea to Brandy, and this was back in December. And I said, I want to change things up. We had an org structure, and Brandy will tell you what we were set up like before. But I said, I want to be in a position to where I can dedicate a group of individuals to an agency when the agency's secretary, undersecretary, HR director, if they have an issue, that we can get in a room and that we can understand their business and help them achieve what they needed to achieve. So I'll let Brandy talk a little bit about that. She did an excellent job. I have to say, she really helped carry my vision out, and with the help of others as well. But Brandy did the heavy lifting on this, and I really appreciate everything that she's done for that.
Hi, Brandy. Tell us something about this. This is fascinating stuff to me.
Yeah, it really is. It really is an exciting time to be in the department and see how things are really evolving for how we serve our client base here. Before the PODS model, we were siloed into very specific divisions, whether that was compensation, employee relations, staffing. And each one kind of had their own lane of where they went with things. So if I needed help with compensation, if I'm in the agency, I'm going to call the compensation division. If I have a problem with overtime question, FLSA, I'm going to call employee relations. And if I'm an applicant out there and I've applied for a job, I'm going to call staffing. So what we found really is it really was multi-tiered. We found that we were lacking potential engagement in our own employees because they felt boxed in and weren't really picking up any additional skills. We found that agencies were struggling to get a consistent message out there because I might call ER for a question, but then if I follow up with comp, I ran into the potential of, getting a different
The
answer.
consistency's not there.
Right. And when we really sat down and looked at the big picture, everything we do here is interrelated. Every department actually touched each other. So it kind of came up with Byron's vision with civil service, next in the optimization piece is how do we take those things and put them back together and actually really engage our employees and better serve our customers. So what we came up with was the PODS model. The PODS, it originally did not stand for anything, but people kept asking, we were going with, everyone's in a cocoon and we're pods. And, it didn't really stand for anything, but people kept asking, even our commissioner, what is that? So what does that mean? And
because we're the state, everything's supposed to be an acronym.
Right. So I think we did questionnaires and emails and asking everybody, come up with all the best adjectives you can think of that stands for PODS. And ultimately, it ended up being proactively optimizing the delivery of strategic solutions, which actually ended up being perfect because it's exactly where we wanted to go. So that was really interesting. And each of these pods is truly dedicated by its mission and the value of the department that it serves. We found that going through our classifications and the agencies that we serve, you actually could group these into like-minded missions, right? And so with that, we're able to really focus our strategic sources and expertise into that area and serve that population just more well-rounded. And so each of these is grouped by similar functions. Each pod is a group of 11 members, and they're led by an agency relationship manager. This agency relationship manager is really the pulse of that pod. They are out there checking in with the agency, whether it be the appointing authority or the HR director or HR managers, hiring managers, figuring out what's going on. What do you need from us? How can we better serve you?
Ongoing contact, understand the pulse of what's really going on.
Absolutely. We really took to heart that idea of proactive, and that's something that these pods have really been helping us be able to do. And so the way these pods are structured, Pod A is Health and Family Services. This is led by our agency relationship manager, Nicole Tucker. Health and Family Services really fit nicely with agencies such as the Department of Health, the DCFS, the Children and Family Services, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. Pod B is our Engineering and Tech Pod. This is led by our ARM, Ailey Poydras, who comes from us from a staffing background. So he has really a lot to offer when we're looking at those and doing that, the hiring of engineers in those technical fields that we see so many issues with. Pod C is Enforcement and Administration. This is led by our ARM, Jason Chapman. In Enforcement and Administration, this is grouping your police entities. Okay. How do we serve the Office of State Police, Crime Lab? How do we serve those and grouping those in a like-minded field?
Everyone has very specific needs. I can understand how this
Absolutely.
works. I'm seeing this. Okay.
Absolutely. And then we have Pod D, which is Units of Local Government and Higher Education. This is led by ARM Elizabeth Montalbano. When we say units of local government and higher education, her pod actually really serves a very unique client base, because this is what we refer to. A lot of times you'll hear us throw around terms like paper agency or an interface agency. And so what this means is that these are those entities that are somewhat, they're off grid of state payroll per se. They all usually have their own information resources, their own payroll systems. And so what this pod does is actually they kind of serve as HR managers and client relations between those. So this is your housing authorities, your ports and levy districts, those type of higher education. So all the colleges and universities. And so they really do serve a unique function there. It's a little bit different than the other pods for sure.
A little bit of collaboration as opposed to being served.
Absolutely. They deal a lot of times with consultants, because if you have these small entities, they may only have 10 people on staff. So maybe they don't have an HR person. The people in this pod become the HR person for those small entities.
That's great.
Yeah. So what we're actually really doing with this, we've, like Byron said, we've been doing this since about December, really getting in there and training and building up those resources. And we do still have some ways to go, but we've actually already received some really positive feedback from agencies regarding this, because now agencies can call one person. I don't have to call, someone in ER. I don't have to call someone in staffing. I'm kind of like a one-stop resource. I can
love
get that.
Because then you're getting that same person too. You get that consistency.
Right.
You're not having to explain your situation over and over again.
Yeah, and if it's one thing we've really learned, I think, over time is that people become comfortable contacting one person.
Yes.
So,
we
so
see that
really,
even after people move out of that position, they'll still contact them.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Okay.
So really building that relationship, we are also able to take a more, I think, team-based approach to things. So now if an agency has an issue, we can proactively look at that. We may sometimes recognize it by looking at data before the agency, even has a chance to see it, because they're so busy doing the day-to-day. I mean, there's discipline out there, FMLA, workers' comp, so to really be able to assist them in these areas. And so what we can do is take that team approach, and I think we've become more visible in the agency. So we're able now to take the time and take our people and send them out there, sit with them one-on-one, like really go through the roles. We talked a lot about compensation redesign, but when you started applying those things, you heard us talk about it, and yeah, that makes sense. But when you actually start implementing it day to day, it's really nice to be able to send somebody out and sit with them and figure out, well, what did that actually mean? Like how does that actually work for us, and what does it look like for us? So some of the big picture things that we've already really been able to do since we've gone to this PODS model, I think one of the first things we did was really kind of look at Medicaid recruitment efforts. We've seen a huge evolution in the way that work is done at the Department of Medicaid. Under the Department of Health, overnight, the way they worked changed, when we took in federal funding. So what that meant is that it really changed the candidate that we were looking for. It really changed the recruitment pool, because now we're looking for people like, I actually need to bring somebody in with managed care organization experience. So that required looking at the market and what is it going to take to actually recruit that candidate pool, because oftentimes they may even be coming from out of state. This may not even be someone that's in the state trying to get these applicants in here. So we changed the pay levels, and we were able to do that relatively quickly because we had already had a team with Nicole, who has a vast knowledge of the Department of Health with her expertise. And this is a problem, and we know how to fix it. And it was a relatively quick solution, going to the commission with that. So we were able to take care of that. We've been able to redesign the engineer job series and setting a statewide market rate. And I think this was really made possible by the expertise that we have in Pod B, dealing specifically, because now we've got all of our engineers in one area, right? So we've got DOTD, CPRA, we've got DEQ, DNR. Everyone came together at the table, all the appointing authorities for those agencies, all the HR directors, and we all sat in a room and we're like, what are your problems?
Wow.
What can we do to help address this? What would you look like this to see? Where are you losing people? We're able to really drill into the data and see if, I'm an engineer 3. Oh, wait, that's where they get their license. That's where they're a professional engineer. So now I'm more attractive to an outside recruiter. And we've also seen a way, we're able to realize that the way they're even doing work is a little bit different, because we've learned most recently, it used to be really attractive to get your PE. But now there's ways in the market, especially if I'm a petroleum engineer, I may not ever have to be PE. And if you want to advance in state government, if you want to get past that, you have to have a professional engineer. So it makes us think about things like MNQuals, and we ended up ultimately increasing that career progression group. So now that potentially can go up to a 5, because we were seeing a lot of turnover at the 3 and 4 level. So this was a really
clearer career paths for people like this.
And we were able to actually establish a statewide market rate for engineers, and so that got us a lot more closely related to the market for that engineer pay, and hopefully retain some of those. And now we're not increasing that competitiveness across state agencies, because all state agencies are paying the same starting hiring rate. So that's I think going to be a big win for us, and a big win for the agencies and the engineers we employ in the state.
These are great points also for people to bring up for our listeners who have friends who are thinking about coming to work for the state.
Right.
These are things to keep in mind right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of room for advancement. It's one of our highest populated fields. I mean, there are probably close to 600 engineers in the state that cross multiple areas, whether you want to be a mechanical engineer or a petroleum engineer, or maybe I want to be a sanitational engineer and work at the Department of Health. There's so many different career paths for these individuals. And the other thing that we've really done recently is we've created a lot of special entrance rates and market rates for all of our state police entities out there, for all of our campus police, for all of our state police. We've been able to really learn a lot about those areas because, again, they're now focused in, a like-minded pod, and so they're all there, and we can bring all these people to the table because we've seen a big shift in that work as well, especially with campus police. It was really interesting to learn just the effects of things like social media out there in these career fields and what that does, and the increases in hazing and what that has done to the college campuses and how that's changed the way the police officers have to work as well. And just the overall stigma, I think, about being in law enforcement at this day and age. It's become really difficult to recruit and retain these employees. Mm-hmm. So those are all things that have really been big wins for the pod. We've really found that there's been a great benefit in consultants completing the process from the ground up. They, now that one person is potentially looking at the position description, they're allocating it or updating it, they're seeing what those duties are. That then triggers them to think, okay, well, what skills does a candidate need? So that same person is then potentially posting that job and calling applicants for the job. So now I have the ability to take those skills, create a specific job posting, or assist the agency in creating a specific job posting for that recruitment pool. Because people may not be aware, we process about 4,000 applications a month for different job postings. We post hundreds of jobs.
I didn't know that.
And so
suddenly we all feel very important that we actually got in here.
Right. No, absolutely, because that brings us to, another bigger picture area that, we're looking at, because if we can tailor those job postings and really get those skill sets there, we're helping the agency and the candidate, because it's frustrating for both parties. Because yes, as a hiring manager, a lot of times you're looking at, I need this work to get done and I want the best candidate to do it, but I just got a list of 200 applicants that are eligible. It's overwhelming. It's like, how do I get into that? How do I comb through that? Whereas for the candidates, it's frustrating because they're applying to something that is on a list of 200 employees. Yeah. And they may not, get a call back, and it's frustrating for them as well. Whereas if we can get to a place where we have these tailored job postings, people may, self-select. They may be more aware about, this may not be the right fit for me. I'm gonna, maybe not apply to this announcement. So that's really some of the things that we're really looking forward to being able to retract those candidate pools. Maybe even reducing the amount of text in those job postings. And some of those things are being really great. And I think as we even continue to spin, keeping in mind we've been doing this for about 6-7 months now, as we continue to dedicate our resources to our staff and really get them built up and dedicated and make sure that they have the tools they need to be successful, and spend time building our supervisors so they can be good mentors and really learning these agencies. I really think that we'll be able to have even greater efficiencies in even more of these areas.
So, Christy, can you tell Brandy's kind of a big part of the
excited.
engine that runs
she's kind of excited about it.
You've just had a glimpse into a beautiful mind.
Thank you. You're right. I see it. Yeah, you can tell she is passionate about this, and I love it. And also, thank you to all those people up there on that screen right now, all the members of the PUD who are doing that work right now. I think it's just amazing, and I think it's a wonderful way of trying to make it more personal to the people who need the services. I love that. Thank you, Brandy. Good stuff. Yeah. All right, well, look, let's see what else we got going on here, because y'all have, that was just one initiative. Y'all got a ton of stuff going on. Speak to us, oh wise ones.
Well, we do have an initiative. I spoke briefly a minute ago about a workforce summit that we had last year, and I introduced the participants to some initiatives that we wanted to work on here at Civil Service. The initiative is called Civil Service Next. It's kind of like Brandy said when we were talking about pods. Somebody threw pods out there and it just stuck. The next kind of stuck. Mm-hmm. But where we want to go in the future, this is a multi-year process here. This is not something that we're going to, overnight have answers to. But we felt that there were 5 areas that we wanted to address, and that if we really put some time and some effort into them, that it could create some efficiencies in state government. So, Brandy did an excellent job talking about the pods, and that really what that's really what the HR optimization was, that needs assessment. We wanted to make sure that we were optimizing our resources to the best of our ability. That's, our resources here at Civil Service and at our state agencies, so we established those agency relationship managers in those pods. Many of them have been reaching out and having touch points with the HR directors and agency heads, learning their missions, learning their visions, and how we can help them. And it's been really productive. So that's an ongoing process when I say needs assessment, because we want those frequent touch points. We want to know what you're working on and how can we assist you. The second one is talent, and talent is becoming something that's becoming very challenging throughout the nation of attracting that talent. We are aggressively looking at our policies and our procedures at the way that we recruit individuals into state government. You heard Brandy mention we look at over 450,000 applicants a year. It's tough to get in. And it's tough when you're a hiring manager and you get a list of 200 people who are qualified for a job. We need to do better at helping our agencies identify who are the best candidates for those jobs. We need to do that service for our hiring managers. Hiring managers play a very important role in talent. This is something that we hope to achieve with our PODS initiative, is dedicating people to the agency, because HR has over the years accumulated a lot of things, especially when civil service decentralized a lot of authority to the agencies to give them greater flexibility. It put a lot of operational, transactional tasks on those HR offices and other regulatory agencies too. They're very busy with the ins and outs of the daily workforce. So, it's a luxury in an agency when you have time to sit down with a hiring manager and say, what are you looking for? What is the candidate that you need? So we want to be able to help in that area if an agency needs help in that area. Brandy mentioned minimum qualifications a minute ago. When we changed our approach here, where someone is working in a particular a pod, I'm hoping that they are going to be working with the agencies and that they're going to start to see that, the people that are applying for these jobs are not qualifying, but we believe that they could do the job. Maybe we need to look at the minimum qualifications. The job has evolved and maybe we need to do something. That's something that if you are a hiring manager or a supervisor in state government, if you believe that the minimum qualifications, could be better reflective of what you need in an applicant, let your HR office know, because those are things that we have control over and that we could change and be very flexible with to help those agencies attract the people that they need.
That's great, because they know what a person needs to be successful in that position.
Absolutely.
How many times do we say, if only I could clone so-and-so?
Right.
Okay, well, what are those
Right.
skills?
We need to know what so-and-so does.
Yes.
Yes. So, talent, so when I talk about talent, it's the recruiting and it's the developing of them and also retaining them. So we're a lot of initiatives with that, but we are, like I said, very aggressively looking at our policies and procedures, and we'll be reaching out to our HR community for some feedback on that. Performance management, I won't spend a lot of time on that. Chris is going to give you an update on that in a minute. But performance management, our current performance evaluation system, we just wanted to visit it and say, is it really doing what it's supposed to be doing? I think we have found where it has become, it's a paper-based system currently. We know that we need some technology out there, but, is it really coaching employees? Is it more of, employee development? What is it? So Chris is going to talk a little bit about that.
Cool.
But wanted feedback on that. And then the last two that we're working on is workplace culture and HR technology. When it comes to workplace culture, that's very broad, but it's something that we know that, around in private industry and in state government, that organizations are really trying to define their culture and explain that culture to their employees, because culture is a really, it's something that individuals seek and that they would actually, it's a retention tool basically.
Yes.
Okay. So you got to know your culture. So when you're recruiting people, you can talk about that culture and how are you going to help strengthen that culture. So, we want to give some, best practices or anything that we can help in that area. We have not started looking at that yet, but hopefully we will be able to dedicate some time in the beginning of the next year with that. And then HR technology. With that, the HR technology that we have, we just want to be a champion for our HR community. That we know that technology drives retention and recruitment with onboarding and with performance management. And we just want to make sure that we have a seat at the table when it comes to our technology folks, that we can express to them what the importance of that is. So anything that we can build upon of what we already have to help our HR and our employees in general.
The right tools to do the job.
Yeah.
That's what we need. Yeah. Excellent. Wow. So basically, y'all are bored. You're not doing much, right? That's what I'm hearing here. Okay. Yes, of course. Well, okay. Well, let's look at these other ones that we were talking about.
Yeah, we have some other ones, and I'm going to actually let Toby talk about this same initiative. Toby, as he mentioned, is our Chief Administrative Officer. He is one of the portions of his job is he's over our testing and recruiting center out on Florida Boulevard here in Baton Rouge. People kind of forget that we have 2 offices.
Yeah.
So he's over that section with recruiting. So this is an initiative that's in his area. So I've asked him to give a little bit about that for you guys.
Sure. Thanks, Byron. So we've actually been working on this for a couple of years now. Back in 2017, around 2017, the governor outlined his vision for Louisiana to be a state that serves as a model employer and really reaches applicants and employees who had disabilities, and to bring that to a greater awareness. So we had the opportunity to work with his office, which was very interesting. We learned a lot about the coordination between us and the governor's office and a lot of these initiatives. But one of the things that we were able to do, he outlined a same as the acronym task force. We've actually been able to have a representative on that task force for the last 2 years. So having a seat at the table, as we talked about, this wide-ranging initiative has been a critical thing for us, and I think we've been able to have some influence in terms of some of the things that affect agencies and affect applicants and affect the process. One of the big things that we were able to do was we actually were able to propose some rule changes to the commission. The commission ultimately approved them to broaden our test exemption for applicants who previously were clients of Louisiana Rehabilitation Services. They actually would be able to have an exemption from our tests. There were some issues with that in the past with funding and how the words in the rule were written, and it kind of excluded people who may have qualified for services but who actually weren't able to receive funding through LRS. So we were able to work with them and the task force and broaden that exemption out to basically apply to anybody who would be deemed eligible for services. So you may not be actually receiving them that fiscal year, you might be on a waiting list, but if you were deemed eligible, that exemption would apply. So we kind of broaden the opportunities out for those individuals.
Makes it much more fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And as part of that, we sort of have an ongoing work with LRS to educate their hiring managers, their staff, and bring them up to speed on what our system looks like, how we advertise for jobs, what are the qualifications for jobs. So actually our staff out at the Test and Recruiting Center has been doing a lot of work with them. And that's, I think, a partnership that we're going to see moving forward is going to be kind of ongoing. And I think for us has been pretty fruitful. As part of that as well, in addition to the rule change, we had an opportunity to develop some training classes that we actually are very, very proud of. 2 classes, one dealing with disability awareness, one dealing with disability etiquette. Those were launched this past year, and those are actually a part of the continuing education requirements. So we are, publicizing these a lot and encouraging people to look at these different courses they might not look at before.
Well, that goes into workplace culture, doesn't it?
Right,
I like that, yeah.
Absolutely. And there, as we worked on it and looked at it and reviewed it, it really brings some things you don't think about. So
Yes.
Those are 2 classes that I think kind of brought us to a different level of understanding of culture, of interactions within an office. And to this point, we've had actually over 1,400 people have taken those courses, so about 700 each. It kind of has broken a little bit evenly.
Just making people think differently is a wonderful thing that happens with that.
And I have to tell Toby's staff did a great job with that. I mean, if you are a classified employee or any employee and are interested in learning more about that, certainly look into that. It's in Leo, correct, Toby?
It's in Leo, yeah.
But those are 2 courses. I took both of them, and I was very impressed with it. Common sense stuff.
Yeah,
but
but common sense is not common all the time.
Right,
so
right.
yeah, we need to be reminded.
It's a delicate issue, and they did a
Yes.
really good job. And the individuals that they interviewed were great.
Oh yes, I love that.
Yeah, but it's like I said at the beginning. I mean, it's something that I think we see a lot of opportunities to continue to partner with different groups of people who maybe we haven't had the opportunity to work with. So we're excited. We've seen a lot of progress, and we hope to be able to be a part of that as we move forward.
Man, talk about making a friendlier workplace. I
Absolutely.
love this. This is great. Okay. Wait, I'm starting to think that maybe Chris has something he wants to add to this conversation.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to take part. I've been sitting here for
He's
a
had a
while
hard time
listening to all
being
this
quiet.
great stuff.
He has really had a hard time being quiet, I have to say.
The struggle
I
is
can
real,
tell. I can
Christy.
tell.
I've got the same gene you have.
I see that.
But I really appreciate this opportunity, this platform, and I'd just like to take a little time to update the audience on what we're doing in the world of performance management.
Okay.
Byron mentioned it earlier as one of his main initiatives, and it's a big one. Everyone knows this particular subject touches everybody. If you're a classified employee in the state of Louisiana, you are either being evaluated in the performance management system, or you are doing some evaluations and likely a combination of both. So in this state, we've had a very formal, mandatory, prescribed performance evaluation process that's uniform across all state agencies. There are some minor differences potentially from agency to agency, but overall the system is designed to be uniform and to treat everyone the same. And the first question we asked ourselves is, do we need a performance management system? Because kind of the trend you see out there today is, some private companies, some large private companies are moving away from performance management. Mm-hmm. They're getting into the world of coaching and employee development, but getting away from that once a year. Hey, you remember that bad thing you did 9 months ago? That wasn't really good.
No, I don't.
Right?
Yes.
We do ultimately believe that in the state of Louisiana, we need some type of system specifically to demonstrate accountability, right? Because the services that we are providing are funded with taxpayer dollars at the end of the day. So there are parties interested in seeing that we are holding ourselves accountable for our performance.
That's fair.
We are doing the work we say we're going to do. We're performing the services that we say we're going to perform. So we do think it is a necessary tool. But we would like for that tool to add some value to the workforce, to the workplace. Mm-hmm. We would like to implement a process that's a little less cumbersome than the one today. We understand that it's paper based. It's very date driven. You have to complete a certain part by a certain date, and if you don't, you violated a rule and the world's ending and all that kind of stuff. So we'd like to see a system that's more flexible. Can be adapted to fit a certain type of agency or a certain type of job or a certain type of employee. So those are kind of some of the things that we had at the forefront of our mind when we started this process. We put some kind of ideas together, and what we've done is we've conducted some focus groups. We've held a number of focus groups with our HR directors, our HR staff across the state, as well as a selected group of supervisors who are actually evaluating people in the current system. And we asked them, kind of their thoughts and opinions on the current system, what they like, what they don't like, how they would, build something, if they had the choice. And unfortunately, what we found was there wasn't a whole lot of consensus. Mm-hmm. The system that we have today is trying to fill several buckets out there. Some people are using it strictly to hold people accountable. Mm-hmm. You remember when you did this 9 months ago, that wasn't very good. We need to do better next year. Mm-hmm. Some people are actually using it as a development and a coaching tool. I would like for you to work on these things next year. I'd like for you to engage these certain resources and try to develop yourself over the next couple of years. So, some folks, they like the structure. They like the rigidness of the timelines so everyone knows what has to happen and the ability to hold people accountable.
Right.
Some people would really like to see, more flexibility and less structure. So there's really a mixed bag of opinions out there. What we do know is that the complaints about the system are pretty consistent, right? The clerical aspects of the system, all of the dates and having to make sure that you get the signatures and the data before you can even have a conversation with the employee. We know we'd like to rid ourselves of some of those more rigid things, in our system. The other common issue that comes up is how do we deal with this category of exceptional performers, right?
Yeah.
What is exceptional? We're constantly asked for a definition of exceptional performance in the state, and we really don't have a consistent definition. It depends on the type of work being done. It depends on the type of agency. It depends on the type of employee. Exceptional performance wears many different hats across many different agencies. But we understand that that's a real struggle for a lot of people out there. How do I identify what is exceptional, and how do I explain to the folks who I didn't rate as exceptional what they need to do?
That's what I hear from
in
supervisors.
order to cross that threshold, right? And
Mhm.
it's very subjective, and at the root of it, it's someone's opinion of how well you did your job, and that's difficult for a lot of people, and we understand that. So we're working through that. We don't have all the answers today, but we've got some very smart people working on it. We have a task force put together. We're reaching out. We're looking at other states. We're looking at private organizations. We're looking at Fortune 500 companies, looking all across the country to see who's doing it the best.
Right.
Who's got some success stories out there that we can learn from, and we're going to bring all that information back in house and come up with a formal plan of action. By the end of this calendar year, the plan is to present something at one of our state civil service commission meetings during the end of the year.
That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, we're all hands on deck with it. Like I
Yeah.
said, we've got people here who are bringing in that information now and putting stuff together. So hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have a conversation in an open forum with our commission. Don't know that we'll have everything cooked or that we'll have the answer, but we'll have a conversation about the direction that we think we need to head and have a plan for addressing some of those common difficulties with the system that we are well aware of.
I know that the fact that you're looking at it is a welcome thing to a lot of employees, because I've heard that as a concern. They really don't know, especially like you're talking about when it comes to exceptional things.
Right.
Not sure what to do. So I think that's going to be great. We'll be looking forward to that. Excellent. Well, the last thing we had on this list, we're down to our last 10 minutes. We're just doing great. But these are initials that aren't even ours. NASP. Somebody else has an acronym.
Yes, absolutely. NASP, we belong to a national organization here at Civil Service called the National Association of State Personnel Executives. It's made up of all of the top state personnel executives from around the United States. So we have all the states represented. We meet twice a year. We just got back from Indianapolis. We had our annual meeting there, and it's really good to be able to go and listen to your other counterparts. We call it therapy. It's like
we all have the same problems.
We all have the same problems.
Yes, that's a good thing.
So we spend the majority of our time sitting around a table just discussing our top issues, and it gives us the ability to say, well, Toby in this state's already doing something, so why am I going to reinvent the wheel? Let me piggyback off of that. And that's what's really good about being in state government. You can share things. But some of the common things that we heard this year, same things that we're experiencing here. The good thing is that employment and compensation cuts that we've experienced over the past years are tending to slow down, and that recruitment is an issue all throughout the nation.
Okay, we're not alone.
We're not alone.
Okay.
Many states have very low unemployment. The trend is that there are more jobs than there are applicants. So, what can we do to attract individuals to state government? So we got a lot of feedback there. A lot of individual states are looking how to brand their state and to promote state government as a job with a purpose. that you can do many things in state government. There's
Mhm.
much availability for career advancement. And then another one was, where we're not over benefits here at State Civil Service. Of course, Office of Group Benefits is under the Division of Administration. But several of my counterparts throughout states, they do administer benefits. And, they were discussing a lot of benefit changes in other states where, employees were having to contribute more to their insurance premiums and so forth. So, some of those things that we've seen in the past, people are going through. Flexible employment practices were becoming more prevalent, a lot more discussion about that. I found it very interesting a lot of times when you talk about flexible employment practices as far as like telecommuting. Usually it was to promote like workforce balance. It was a little bit interesting this year because some states were talking about the cost of maintaining buildings, like state buildings, and some of them were in such disrepair that they would have to build a new building. It was cheaper for them to actually send people home to work from home. So that was a different little twist than what you've normally seen the employer taking a more approach of saying, we're going to have people working at home than employees saying we want to work from home. So I found that very interesting.
Cool.
But overall, share the same opportunities and same struggles. So,
yeah. And of course, y'all had to stand out at the NASB convention as usual. Huh?
Yes, we were very excited. We did receive what's called the Eva Santos Communication Award for our Louisiana pop-up video.
Which, if I remember, there was a webinar that won that award in years past.
Absolutely.
I remember that. Yes.
I can't remember the name of it.
I know. I don't either. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But and when you talk about branding, this pop-up video, I love this thing.
This is something that we are seeing other states do as well. I've talked many times about the perception of state employees and how, my goal is always to raise the awareness of what we do in state government. We have a lot of negative stereotypes, and that exists everywhere.
That's right.
But, for state employees to be proud of what they do. And my staff got together and said, well, I think we should show what services the state provides. So citizens really may not have an idea of what their daily duties that they go through, their daily activities, what they come in contact with as state employees actually do. So that's what this video does.
I love that.
It follows an individual. The star of the show is one of our employees, waking up in the morning, from feeding her children to dropping them off at school to, fueling her vehicle to coming to work, and all of those things she interacts with services that were provided for state employees.
I love the sense of pride it gives you. We sometimes forget the effect we have on every citizen's lives every single day. And this is just a great way to remind you, because every one of them I looked at, I thought, oh, but there's also such and such. Because there were a million you could apply to every one of these. And I thought that was just an outstanding video.
Absolutely.
Great job.
I'm very, very proud of the staff that put that together.
Good job. Well, I'm good. What I'm going to do is, actually, because we're closer to the end, what I'm going to do is put both of these together. Your best advice or your closing thoughts. And sorry, Toby, you're not in this picture, but that's okay because their names are on the wrong side anyway. But so what I want to do is your best thoughts, ways that people can make their careers stronger, how they can keep building in their career in state government, or any other tips that you have that you'd like to share with us. So how about we just go around and get everybody to do one of these?
Sure, I'll start. For me, when I got into state government, of course, everybody gets into state government because they just need a job. That's one interview question that I try to avoid. Why do you apply here? Because I know you need a job. But for me, it's finding a purpose. Mm-hmm. Finding a purpose. I get a lot of pride out of knowing that what I do and what my organization does contributes to a larger perspective. That we are bringing value there. So my biggest advice in state government is to find a mentor. I've had really good mentors throughout my career.
Good one.
And, the ability to watch them and see how they interact when they were moving up in leadership positions and say, well, yeah, I really agree with that. And that's really great. Or maybe I would have done it this way. So, finding a really good mentor, I think.
Oh, what a great idea. Mm-hmm. Love it. Thank you.
I think, in my experience, a very important thing to do is to understand how your particular role connects to the big picture in your agency. If that's not being clearly demonstrated to you on a daily basis, I think you should seek that information out understand how the job you're performing fits into the bigger picture. That way, you're prepared for any advancements that may come your way. And if you identify an issue or identify a problem, try your best to identify the corresponding solution to that problem. If you can be someone who's counted on as not only identifying problems, but identifying potential solutions to those problems, then I think you'll position yourself as a real asset to your organization.
Yes.
And someone who can be counted on to do bigger and better things in the future.
I love that. That's showing us the future leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
I think for me, one of the biggest things, and this is something that Byron has really instilled in us, is just really to find your why. You know, why are you waking up in the morning and going to do what you do, and realizing that there are so many different opportunities to make a difference in state government. I mean, there's no other field that you can be in that, today I can work at DCFS, and if I feel like I've made a difference there and I'm ready to move on, you know what, I'm going to go work at the Department of Health, or I'm going to seek a different opportunity. And people in state government really, really have the advantage there and the opportunity to make a difference in so many different places.
I love that. Yes, definitely get back to the why.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's a couple of things. It's really taking your own development into your own hands. I mean, a lot of us have been very fortunate to have mentors, to be in positions where other people have seen some potential in us and developed that, but a lot of people aren't in that situation, and so I think a lot of it is knowing what you are good at, where you're maybe weak, how to tweak those things, how to develop yourself to be prepared, because you never know what's going to happen. And my experience has been opportunities that I thought would happen went a different way. And so it's like, are you able to capitalize on those when that time comes? And it's just being prepared. And it's also knowing yourself. I think being a little bit self-reflective and knowing who you are, what you want to do, and identifying those things are going to help you be able to be prepared for those opportunities.
What a great way to bring this all home. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I cannot thank y'all enough for your ideas, your information today. This has been a wonderful information. And reminding people that if you didn't catch all of this, no worries. We'll have this up on the YouTube channel. You just search for State Civil Service, and we'll have this up on the YouTube channel for you to watch. I had a couple of questions. We'll check on those, and I will send out information to the people who ask questions about some of these things. And let's see, the other thing that I want to remind people, next month we got speaking power. That's going to be fun, okay? So please join us for the program next month. We'll talk about some of the best tips from some of the best speakers that we can find. So we'll have real fun with that. Thank y'all so much for being a part of the program.
Thank you for the opportunity, Christy. We appreciate it.
Y'all were awesome. Awesome. And I'm pumped because I realize now, I feel like I know everything going on, and I don't, but I feel like it, so it's okay. So thank y'all, and thank you to our listeners. We really appreciate you being here with us today. And remember, until next time, keep on learning.